How far can someone push harmless fun before real life pushes back hard? What happens when the quiet husband everyone mocked shows up at school pickup with a calm face, a stack of facts, and the other man's wife standing beside him? How do you come back from reading legal words in front of your child that end the life you took for granted? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Corin, I am 34 years old, and until very recently I believe my life was quiet, simple, and safe in a way most people would call boring. I work as a logistics coordinator in a warehouse on the edge of the city, where my days are just pallets, delivery times, and spreadsheets that nobody outside the building ever thinks about. I liked that kind of life, because it meant the loudest thing in my world was usually a forklift alarm, not gossip or drama. At home, I thought I had the same kind of quiet. A small apartment, my wife Lena, and our 6-year-old daughter Maya, who still wanted bedtime stories every night. I did not know that while I tried to keep everything steady, someone else was already turning our marriage into something people laughed about on their phones. Lena is 32, a social media manager for a lifestyle brand, and almost the opposite of me in every way. Where I avoid attention, she chases it, always holding her phone, always checking comments from strangers and friends. When we first met, that energy pulled me out of my shell. She made simple nights feel special with music and quick photos, turning burned pasta into a fun disaster story for her followers. Over time, though, the phone stopped being a cute detail and became a third presence at our table. It moved from the counter to her hand, even while Maya tried to tell her about school, and most evenings turned into Lena half listening to us, while fully listening to whoever was buzzing in her pocket. I can look back now and see small signs I ignored, but there was one night when everything started to feel different. We were in the kitchen after dinner, plates stacked in the sink, Maya's crayon spread across the table like a small explosion of color. I was rinsing dishes, thinking about a delayed shipment, while Lena leaned against the counter with her phone in her hand, smiling at the screen instead of at us. Every few seconds, it buzzed softly, and the light from it reflected in the window above the sink. When I stepped closer to grab a towel, she tilted the phone away from me in a smooth, practiced movement that felt too natural to be new. She said a coworker was making her laugh, a married guy from sales named Tom who just got her sense of humor. She said it in a casual tone, like I already knew who he was, even though I had never heard his name before. As she talked about her day, everything circled back to Marcus. Tom said this about a client, Tom sent that meme, Tom stayed late with her to finish a report. I tried to talk about Maya's art project and about my father visiting soon, but Lena's eyes kept dropping back to the screen. When the phone buzzed again, she smiled, said something about how it was nice to have harmless fun, and told me not to look so serious. Later that week, harmless fun turned into regular team nights after work. On one of those evenings, I stood outside our bedroom door while she got ready, pretending to adjust a crooked picture on the hallway wall. I heard her voice, lower than usual, and she said into the phone that she was tired of boring dinners and quiet nights, that she wanted to feel young and seen again. I did not hear the other side, but I heard her say Marcus's name and then laugh in a way I had not heard in our kitchen for a long time. When I stepped into the doorway, she ended the call quickly and told me she was just chatting with the team about a campaign. She wore a dress that night that she usually saved for special occasions. The one she used to joke was for us, not for the world. When I asked who was going to be there, she listed people quickly and slid Marcus's name in at the end, almost like a footnote. I said it sounded like a lot of nights out lately. She told me I was overthinking, reminded me that Tom was married, and asked if I trusted her or not. I did not want to start a fight while Maya was brushing her teeth in the bathroom down the hall, so I said I just wanted her to be safe. She rolled her eyes and kissed Maya on the forehead on her way out, telling her that Daddy would handle bedtime. After the front door closed, the apartment felt too big for the two of us. I cleaned the table, put the crayons back into the box, and checked the wall planner pinned near the fridge. A date later in the month was circled in bright red ink. It was not my handwriting, and there was no note next to it, just the silent mark on the square. I stared at it for a moment, then opened the drawer under the planner and pulled out a thin binder I had labeled Household. It was supposed to be for bills, nothing more. Without quite knowing why, I slid the newest phone and bank statements into plastic sleeves, smoothing the pages with my hand until they lay flat. It felt like the only thing in the room I could actually arrange. Maya padded into the kitchen in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes and asking when Mommy would be home. I told her Mommy was with friends from work and would be back later, that it was my turn for stories tonight. She accepted that answer more easily than I did. After I tucked her into bed, she asked if I was sad. I said I was just tired. She said I looked like I was worrying. Her small hand rested on my arm for a moment. Then she rolled over and hugged her toy, already letting it go in the way children can, even when adults cannot. I stayed up longer than usual that night, sitting at the kitchen table with the lights low. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the occasional car passing outside. My eyes drifted again to the wall planner and the red circle, then to the household binder sitting a little crooked on the counter. I straightened it and thought about how many small changes I had accepted without really naming them. I told myself that keeping calm was better than exploding, that watching closely was better than accusing blindly. Sometime after midnight, I heard the familiar squeak of the front door hinge. Lena stepped inside, already laughing softly at something on her phone, the smell of perfume and bar air clinging to her clothes. She dropped her keys into the bowl by the door and set her phone face up on the table for just a second while she bent to unlace her shoes. In the quiet, I heard the buzz against the wood and saw the screen light up. A message preview slid across the top, a contact saved only with a red heart and the words, "Can't wait next time." Lena snatched the phone up quickly, turned the screen away, and walked toward the bedroom. A moment later, I heard the bedroom door latch click softly into place, leaving me alone in the dark hallway with that last vibration still echoing in my chest. The morning after that late return, I went to work with a tight feeling in my chest that coffee could not loosen. The warehouse office was its usual mix of beeping scanners, ringing phones, and the constant shuffle of paper. On the surface, nothing had changed. The same trucks waited at the docks, the same drivers called to complain about traffic, and my email inbox filled with the same messages about delays and missing pallets. I told myself that routine would calm me down. If I just kept moving through the tasks, maybe the picture of that heart contact on Lena's phone would fade a little. It did not. It sat behind everything like a watermark. Late in the morning, I stood near one of the open plan desks, going over a delivery schedule with a coworker named Josh. He scrolled through the route sheet I had printed, then his eyes shifted to his second monitor, where a browser tab with social media sat half open. He stopped talking about the route and leaned closer to the screen with a noise that sounded like surprise and amusement mixed together. He asked if Lena had gone out with her work team again. When I said yes, he tilted the monitor toward me without asking if I wanted to see it. On the screen was a photo from a rooftop bar, tagged from the night before. Lights from the city sparkled behind a group of people holding drinks. Lena stood near the center, pressed close to a man I recognized only from her stories as Marcus. Her body leaned toward him, his arm rested low behind her back, and they both smiled with the kind of warmth I had not seen at our dinner table for a long time. The caption talked about work hard, play hard energy, with some joking line about stealing someone's wife for the night. My name was tagged along with hers, not in a gentle way, but as part of the joke. My first instinct was denial. I told myself it must be the angle, or the timing, or a bad caption from someone else. Josh laughed nervously and said in a half-embarrassed tone that the comments were wild. Another coworker walked past, saw the image, and tried to change the subject. I stood there with the schedule in my hand, looking at my wife's face on the screen and seeing a version of our life that did not have me in it, at least not in the way I thought. I heard myself say something flat about it just being office fun. No one believed me, not even me. Later, in the small break room, I could feel eyes on me even when people pretended to talk about other things. Two coworkers stood near the coffee machine, speaking softly but not softly enough. One said it looked like Lena had found herself a new best friend at work. The other asked if I was okay having that online where everyone could see it. When I stepped closer, they fell quiet for a moment, then shifted the conversation back to sports and shipments. It was the same pattern: quiet jokes, quick glances, sharp silence. I realized the story of my marriage was moving through other people's phones faster than I could move through my own thoughts. Not long after that, my manager, Evan, called me into his glass-walled office with a short wave of his hand. I walked in with my tablet and notebook, expecting a routine discussion about a slow vendor, but his face had that careful look managers use when they are about to talk about personal matters. He said he had noticed I seemed distracted lately and asked if everything was all right at home. Before I could answer, he added that the company was often tagged in employees' social posts, and some images could send the wrong message about professionalism. He mentioned the rooftop bar posts without describing them directly, said that people were talking, and told me he did not want my private life to affect my position. His tone was not cruel, but it was clear. Even in the warehouse, where nobody cared much about anything beyond boxes and trucks, my marriage was now a topic. I told him that I understood, that I would stay focused, and that I appreciated his concern. I did not defend Lena's behavior. I did not argue the meaning of the photos. There was nothing good to say that would not sound like a lie, so I kept to what I could control. My work, my posture, my voice staying level. Evan nodded, said he trusted me to handle things, and went back to his emails. I left his office with my stomach twisted and the feeling that the floor under my life was not quite solid anymore. During my lunch break, I sat alone at my desk with my own computer open. I logged into the same platform and found more pictures from the rooftop bar. In some, Lena and Tom were close enough that their heads touched. In another, she rested her hand on his chest while someone else held the camera. The comments were full of laughing emojis and little hints, people asking if they were the real couple and saying that some husbands were too boring to understand fun. I took screenshots quietly, saving them to a folder without names, just timestamps. I did not like the feeling of collecting evidence about my own wife, but something inside me finally accepted that I could not just rely on my own memory if everything fell apart. After a few minutes, I opened a new spreadsheet. In one column, I put initials. In another, dates and rough times. I marked L and M on the day of the rooftop bar, then added a note about the photo and the caption. It looked cold on the screen, but it felt less slippery than my emotions. A small cloud icon popped up in the corner of my desktop with a short message saying that a file had been uploaded successfully. I watched the icon turn solid, then minimized the window when someone walked behind my chair. All anyone could see on my screen after that was a simple calendar with delivery dates and a reminder that said Storage Unit 3:15 p.m. I clicked it away like it was nothing. After work, I picked up Maya from school and took her to the park for a while, trying to stretch the time before we had to go back to the apartment. The park was full of normal sounds, children yelling, swings squeaking, a dog barking at a squirrel. I pushed Maya on the swing and listened to her talk about a craft project they did in class. She mentioned that Lena had told her about a man from work who was very funny and promised to teach her a dance at some event. She said his name like it was just another adult friend with no weight at all. My hands tightened on the swing chains, but my voice stayed calm when I asked how often Mommy talked about him. While Maya ran to the slide, another parent from the neighborhood walked over and stood beside me. She asked in a low, hesitant tone if everything was okay between me and Lena. I asked why she wondered. She said she had seen some posts the night before that looked intense, and other parents were talking about it at drop-off. She said people thought Lena and Tom made a striking pair. I thanked her for checking on me and said that sometimes people posted things that did not show the whole truth. She looked like she wanted to say more, but instead she patted my arm and went to call her son. On the bus ride home, I scrolled through my saved screenshots again with the volume off and the phone close to my chest. For each image, I checked the time, then matched it to small details I remembered from our own messages and my own locations. I wrote quick notes in my spreadsheet later that evening, initials and dates, nothing more. When I finished, I watched the cloud icon again as it confirmed the file was stored somewhere I could not accidentally delete in a moment of weakness. The next morning at work, the air in the warehouse felt heavier, like dust that never settled. I tried to lose myself in inventory checks and emails, but the whispers did not stop. At one point, I saw a few coworkers gathered around a phone near the loading dock, their faces lit by the screen. They glanced at me, then looked away too quickly. My own phone buzzed in my pocket, but I ignored it until Evan appeared at the edge of my vision and asked if he could have another quick word in his office. As I followed him, my phone buzzed again, and when I finally looked at the screen, I saw a new group chat notification with a preview of a fresh video of Lena and Tom dancing even closer than before, ready to pull the whole mess into a louder, more public place. Evan's second talk stayed with me all afternoon. I kept thinking about the way he looked at me, not unkind, but worried that something in my personal life might spill into our workplace. I did my best to move through the rest of the day like a normal employee, answering emails, checking shipments, fixing a mistake on an order that someone had entered wrong. By the time I finished, my head throbbed in a slow, dull way that had nothing to do with inventory. I picked up Maya, made sure she ate, and tried to keep the evening quiet. When she went to bed, I finally sat down at the table and looked again at the group chat notification I had ignored earlier. It was another video from a bar, flashing lights and moving bodies, Lena and Tom in the middle. I watched with the sound off. It was strange seeing my wife in that noisy world while our apartment sat still around me. Later that week, Lena mentioned that her team was planning another big night. She said there would be people from other departments and that it would be good 4 appearances, if I came along this time. The way she said it made it sound like I was being offered a chance to repair my own image, to prove I was not the jealous husband in the comments. I did not want to go. I would have preferred another simple evening with Maya and a quiet book. But some part of me felt that if I did not see the dynamic with my own eyes, I would always wonder if I was imagining things. So I said I would come, tried to sound supportive, and watched her face. She looked almost surprised, then quickly pleased, like someone whose plan just got easier. On the night of the event, my father came over to watch Maya. He noticed Lena's outfit and raised his eyebrows slightly, but he did not say anything until she had left the room. After she walked down the hall to get her makeup bag, he asked in a careful tone if everything was all right. I told him that Lena was just busy with social work events and that I planned to keep my head clear. He looked at me for a long moment and said that patience was good, but a person did not have to pretend they enjoyed disrespect. I said I understood. I was not sure yet what I would do with that understanding. The rooftop bar was louder and brighter in person than in any of the photos. Music pushed at my chest, and the air smelled of perfume, alcohol, and grilled food from the open kitchen. Strings of lights stretched above the crowd, and the city skyline glittered in the distance. I followed Lena through the entrance, feeling underdressed in a simple shirt, while she seemed to fit the scene perfectly. She moved easily between groups, greeting people with quick touches and practiced laughter. When she reached Marcus, her body tilted toward him before she even seemed to notice I was still behind her. She introduced us in a quick, almost formal way, as if we were colleagues meeting for the first time. Tom gave me a firm handshake and a friendly smile that did not reach his eyes. He talked about work, about how important Lena was to the team, about how busy things had been. If any guilt lived in his chest, he hid it well. He moved closer to her as he spoke, and she did not step away. Around us, a few of her friends watched carefully, taking in every small gesture. One of them made a comment about how nice it was that I had decided to loosen up and join them. They said Lena had told them I was usually too serious for this kind of night. For a while, I tried to blend in. I stood near the bar, drank slowly, and watched the crowd. Music changed, people cheered, and someone started a round of shots. Lena and Tom moved to the center of a small open space where people were dancing. At first, the dancing could still be called harmless. The more the night went on, the less harmless it felt. Their bodies moved closer, their hands lingered longer, and the line between coworkers and something else blurred in front of everyone. Phones came out. Screens glowed as people recorded short clips for stories and posts. One of Lena's friends dragged me over to the group near the bar railing and pointed at them as they danced. She laughed and called them the star couple of the night, then looked at me to see if I would react. I felt heat rise in my chest, but I kept my face calm. I said that I hoped everyone was having a safe evening. The friend rolled her eyes, called me tense, and drifted back to the others, where the music swallowed her words. From where I stood, I could see Tom lean down to say something into Lena's ear. She threw her head back and laughed, then rested her hand briefly on his chest. A circle formed around them, phones raised, hands clapping. When I turned away for a moment to steady myself, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the glass wall of the building. I looked like a man who had wandered into the wrong party, someone older than my age, someone standing outside his own life. In that reflection, I also saw a young woman nearby lift her phone to record again, her camera catching both Lena's bright smile and my still face at the edge of the frame. It occurred to me that even if I said nothing, the story of that night would travel without me. I stepped out of the main crowd for a few minutes and stood near the railing, pretending to enjoy the view of the city. The air was cooler there, and the music sounded slightly softer. From that spot, I could watch everything without being in the middle. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and when I checked it, I saw that one of my coworkers had already sent a message in a private thread, asking if I was at the same bar my wife was posting from. I did not answer. Instead, I took a few still photos from my own angle, not to share, but to keep. I saved them to a small locked folder on my phone and slid it back into my pocket. As the night wore on, I told Lena that I was going to leave early to relieve my father and put Maya to bed myself. She barely looked at me. She said the team still had things to celebrate, that I should not be offended, and that she would come home later. I nodded, said I understood, and did not argue in front of her circle. A few people watched us with curious eyes, waiting for a scene that did not come. I left the bar to the sound of music and laughter, carrying the quiet part of the night with me instead. On the ride home, I stopped at a supermarket that stayed open late. The grocery aisles were almost empty. I picked up a few basic items we needed, more out of habit than true necessity. At the checkout, the cashier held her phone under the counter during a slow moment, watching a short video on mute. When she looked up to scan my items, her eyes flicked between me and the screen with a quick, sharp recognition that made my stomach sink. I did not ask what she had seen. I signed the receipt, put the bag over my arm, and left. Back at the apartment, the building was quiet, the stairwell lit by a single buzzing lamp. In the garage, my father was waiting by his car. He said Maya had fallen asleep on the couch after asking if Mommy would be home for breakfast. He did not press for details, but his eyes told me he already knew more than I had said. After he left, I carried Maya to her bed, covered her with a blanket, and went to my small desk in the corner of the bedroom. I turned on my laptop and plugged in a small USB stick I had bought on the way home. One by one, I saved the photos and videos from my phone onto it, naming the files only with dates and times. When I finished, I labeled the stick with that day's date in neat handwriting, then taped it under a thick folder marked Taxes in the drawer. It felt strange, secretive, and cold, but it also felt like the only way to hold the truth still. Later, when I lay in bed listening to the distant sounds of cars outside, my mind returned to the rooftop bar. I kept seeing Lena and Tom in the circle of people, phones raised high, and hearing, in my memory, the way the crowd began to chant for them to give a toast, while I stood on the edge of the scene like a stray extra in my own story. In the days after that rooftop night, the air inside our apartment felt different, even when nothing was being said out loud. It was like the walls had absorbed the noise from the bar and were now quietly echoing it back. Lena moved through the rooms as if everything were normal, but little things had changed. She kept her phone closer to her body, face down on the table or tucked into her pocket. She spent more time in the bedroom with the door half closed, scrolling or typing, while I stayed in the kitchen or living room with Maya. When she mentioned Marcus, she did it lightly, like he was just part of her work story, but his name kept appearing in every new story she told. I kept my reaction small because I had learned that any sign of anger would be turned into proof that I was the problem. Soon after, Lena suggested that we visit her mother, Irene, for a small family lunch. The way she framed it, she wanted support from someone who would understand her need for fun and attention. I knew what that meant. Irene had always protected Lena, even when she was wrong. Still, I agreed to go, because avoiding the visit would only become another piece of evidence against me in whatever version of the story Lena was building. We drove across town in near silence, with music from the car radio filling the gaps. Maya hummed along in the back seat, unaware that this trip was not really about food or family, but about sides. Irene's living room was as polished as ever, with carefully arranged cushions and framed photos covering the walls. Most of them showed Lena at different stages of her life, from smiling child to smiling bride, frozen in time before phones started recording everything. Irene greeted us warmly, but her eyes went straight to Lena's face, searching for signs of distress or excitement. After a short moment of small talk, Lena began to describe the recent nights out. She did not mention Tom at first. Instead, she spoke about how hard she worked and how she needed to relax. Then she moved into the part where I was supposedly too serious, too controlling, too stuck in my own routines. Irene listened carefully and then turned her attention to me. Irene asked in a firm yet gentle tone why I did not enjoy going out with Lena more, why I made her feel guilty for wanting to have fun. She said that marriage needed energy, not just bills and schedules. She did not mention the photos or the way Lena and Tom had been pressed together under the rooftop lights. Lena finally brought up Marcus, calling him Harmless, a married friend from work who made her feel seen. She said I was reading too much into everything, that I was making her look bad by acting cold. I answered as calmly as I could. I said that meeting a married man in groups was one thing, but constant private messages, late nights, and intimate photos were another. I said that dancing closely with him while people recorded and tagging me in the joke did not feel like respect. Irene waved a hand like she was brushing away smoke. She told me that men like me often confuse fear with love, that if I trusted Lena, I would not be worried about a little flirting. She suggested I change, not her. While this was happening, Lena's younger sister, Tessa, sat in an armchair nearby, watching both of us closely. She did not join in the defense. She simply listened, her expression shifting slightly when Lena softened details about her nights. When Lena said that the rooftop photos were just silly, Tessa glanced at me with an understanding that she did not voice. It was a small thing, but I noticed it. After lunch, when we were getting ready to leave, Tessa walked me to the door while Lena and Irene stayed in the kitchen. Tessa said quietly that she had seen some of the posts and that they did not look like simple jokes. She did not explicitly take my side, but she said that people could lie to themselves for a long time if they had enough cheering from friends. I thanked her for being honest and told her I would remember her words. It was the first time someone from Lena's family had given even a small sign that I was not crazy. A few days later, there was a school event in the community center hall, some kind of talent show for the younger children. Maya had practiced a simple song at home for days and was excited to stand on a stage. I wanted the evening to be only about her. Lena said she would be there, of course, and she added in a light voice that Tom and some colleagues might come too, since they wanted to support community events. The idea of facing that man in a place filled with children and teachers made my stomach tight, but I did not refuse. If I stayed away, it would become another sign of my supposed insecurity. The community center hall buzzed with parents, teachers, and kids in small costumes. Folding chairs lined the floor, and paper decorations hung from the ceiling. I sat near the middle so Maya could find me easily when she looked out from the stage. When Lena arrived, she was not alone. Tom walked beside her, relaxed and smiling, carrying a coffee cup. Some of the other parents noticed them and started whispering. One mother nearby asked under her breath if that was the man from the videos she had seen online. I heard her, but pretended I had not. Lena took a seat a few rows ahead with Tom and some coworkers, leaving an empty chair next to me. During breaks between performances, they leaned close to each other, laughing at something on her phone. Once, I saw her show him a picture of Maya in her little costume, and he nodded with what looked like polite approval. Watching him look at my daughter's face on her screen made my chest grow tight. A teacher stepped on stage and asked everyone to silence their phones, but a few stayed lit, screens glowing faintly as people checked messages and slid cameras back into pockets. When it was Maya's turn to perform, she scanned the crowd, found me, and waved nervously. I waved back and smiled as steadily as I could. Her eyes flicked to Lena next. She also saw Marcus. Later, after she finished and the applause faded, she came running to us. Lena hugged her quickly and then turned to say something to Tom while still holding Maya's hand. I heard Maya ask softly why Mommy's friend was there and why he sat with her instead of with us. Lena brushed off the question with a bright tone, saying that he was just helping with work events. Maya's brows pulled together, the way they did when a puzzle piece refused to fit. That night, after we got home, I pulled fresh sheets onto the guest bed in the small room that had once been a shared office. I told Lena I thought some space might help us both think more clearly. She laughed without much humor and said that if I wanted to be dramatic, I could sleep wherever I liked. In the kitchen, I noticed that without planning it, I had placed my mug on one counter and hers on the opposite side of the sink, as if drawing a silent line down the middle. I took a thick binder labeled Utilities from the shelf and moved it into the guest room, sliding it into the bedside table. Its weight felt wrong for simple bill copies. Inside, I had started to place printed records and organized notes, all without titles that would reveal too much at a glance. Later that evening, my phone lit up with a call from an unknown number, marked only as private. I stepped into the hallway and answered in a low voice. The conversation was short and direct, mostly confirming times and basic details about future meetings and what information I should keep track of. I did not use any names. When it ended, I opened a message thread I had renamed Follow-Up and wrote a few simple lines to remind myself what had been said. Then I deleted the notification from the top of the screen and put the phone face down on the dresser. When I finally lay down in the guest bed, the apartment felt strangely split, like two separate homes occupying the same space. The ceiling looked different from this angle. I could hear the quiet sounds of Lena moving around in the other bedroom, opening drawers, tapping her phone, maybe laughing at a message from Marcus. The door to the guest room was half open so I could hear if Maya had a bad dream. I closed my eyes, hoping for a few hours of dreamless sleep. Instead, I heard soft footsteps in the hallway. When I opened my eyes, Maya was standing in the doorway with her blanket in her arms, her face serious in the dim light. She asked in a small voice if I and Mommy were still married and if Tom was going to be her new dad, and the question hung between us like something heavy and sharp, refusing to disappear. The night Maya stood in the doorway asking if Tom was going to be her new dad, something in me shifted in a way that did not make noise but did not move back. I sat up in the guest bed, pulled her close, and told her in simple words that she had one father and that I would always be there for her. I did not talk about divorce or lawyers or any kind of plan. I just held her while she slowly relaxed. When she fell asleep again, I carried her back to her room, tucked her in, and went back to the guest bed with a heart that no longer believed this could be fixed by pretending. That was the night I decided I would not be just a man watching his life burn on a screen. I would still stay calm, but I would not stay still. The next step did not involve shouting at Lena or arguing with Marcus. Instead, it began with a quiet message to a number someone at work had shared months earlier when they mentioned knowing a woman in a similar situation. I had kept that number in my contacts without a name, only with a small symbol, as if even then I expected to need it one day. Now I used it. The reply came the next morning. A simple suggestion to meet in a safe, neutral public place. We agreed on the hospital cafeteria where she worked. Only later did I realize that the woman I was meeting, Naomi, was not just someone who had survived an affair, but the wife of the man my wife was seeing as harmless fun. The hospital cafeteria smelled of coffee, soup, and disinfectant, a mix that made everything feel both ordinary and serious at once. I arrived early, bought a drink I barely tasted, and chose a table near a window, away from the main flow of people, but still in clear view. When Naomi walked in, she was easy to recognize from photos I had seen online. She had the look of someone holding herself together out of habit. She sat down across from me, folded her hands around her cup, and said that she had not believed it at first when she heard her husband's name in my messages. She had thought there was some mistake, some other Marcus, some other woman. Then she said that when she looked more carefully at their bank statements and travel records, and when she noticed her husband's strange schedule, she knew there was only one explanation that made sense. I did not want to cause her pain, but hiding the truth would not protect anyone. I placed my phone on the table and opened the folder where I kept saved posts and clips. I did not force anything on her. I simply turned the screen slightly so she could see if she chose. She did. The first video showed Lena and Tom dancing at the rooftop bar. Naomi watched, her jaw tightening slightly, but she did not cry or create a scene. She asked about the date and time. I told her. It matched a night when Tom had claimed to be on a late work call from a hotel. Another photo showed them sitting close, heads almost touching, at a small table lit by soft lights. Naomi said that this picture was from a weekend he had told her he spent alone to clear his head. The more we compared, the less room there was for any story about harmless fun. We did not shout. We did not make threats. Instead, we laid out a quiet line of facts between us, like a path made of small stones. She showed me her own phone, where hotel charges and travel bookings appeared on certain dates. I thought about bank notices I had seen on our statements. The pieces fit together in a way that was horrible but simple. At one point, she asked how our daughter was handling things, and I told her about Maya's question at the guest room door. Naomi's hand tightened around her cup again. She said that if there were children involved, then we could not let this remain a joke for the people at bars and in comment sections. Something had to be structured, not just emotional. We met a second time in the lobby near Naomi's office, where people hurried past with clipboards and ID badges. It was not a place for drama. It was a place for decisions. I arrived with a small notebook and my phone. A reminder glowed on my screen for a recurring event titled Meeting Personal. I dismissed it and slipped the phone into my pocket. We talked about schedules, about who usually took care of which tasks at home, about how our partners managed to hide these meetings behind talk of work. She said that she had reached a point where she did not want to be the one holding all the shame for something she did not do. I told her I understood perfectly. We agreed that whatever came next had to protect us and the children first, not their ability to keep playing a game. Back at the apartment, the divide between spaces grew sharper. In the kitchen, 2 separate mugs lived on opposite counters, mine near the sink, Lena's near the coffee machine. It was a small thing, but it felt like a silent map of our new reality. Lena started staying out even more, often with weak excuses. When she was home, she moved through the rooms like I was a piece of furniture. If she noticed that a binder labeled Utilities had moved to the guest room, she said nothing. Inside that binder, I had begun to place printed records, dates of online posts, bank transaction summaries, phone screenshots with only times and vague descriptions. Nothing had official titles or letterheads. To a quick glance, it was all just household paperwork. My father, Daniel, came by one weekend to help me fix a loose cabinet door. While we worked, he said gently that he could see this was not a short phase anymore. He told me he believed I had done enough waiting and that there was a difference between patience and surrender. He did not tell me what to do. He just said that whatever I decided, he would stand by me, and that when a child started asking if her father could be replaced, something had already gone too far. Later, Tessa sent me a text saying that Lena had started telling people I was trying to control her by sleeping in another room, and that she thought I should know. Tessa added that she did not buy Lena's stories anymore. Irene, on the other hand, stopped calling me at all. In the evenings, after Maya fell asleep, I sat in the guest room with my laptop open. I refined the spreadsheet I had started at work. The columns now held initials for names, dates, locations, and short-coded notes. I did not write affair or cheating. I wrote simple things like M rooftop, H trip, S show. When a row was complete, I watched a small cloud icon appear again, saying that the file was uploaded. I also took a clear photo of one of the documents I had been advised to fill out later and stored it deep in my gallery between Harmless family pictures. On my desktop, I created 2 clean folders labeled Archive A and Archive B, placing different versions of the file inside so nothing rested in only one place. One early morning, before the sun came up fully, my phone alarm went off with a soft chime. Its label read Paper Drop. I turned it off quickly and sat on the edge of the guest bed for a while, listening to the apartment. In the next room, Maya breathed evenly. Somewhere in the building, a neighbor's shower turned on. The day ahead felt heavier than others, not because I planned any sudden confrontation, but because I had reached a point where my path forward was clear. I could not control Lena's choices, and I could not change the past months of disrespect. But I could choose how I would leave this story, and what kind of father I would be on the other side. That evening, Lena came home later than usual again, smelling of a mix of perfume and someone else's cologne. She joked that I must miss her when she was gone, that my guest bed must feel lonely. I looked at her, not with anger, but with a kind of tired clarity that even she seemed to notice. I told her, in a level voice, that I was done arguing, done trying to convince her that what she called fun had a cost for me and for Maya. I said that from now on, I would handle everything properly, that I would not shout or make scenes, but that I would not stay in a place where I was treated as a joke. As I finished speaking, my phone lit up on the counter between us with the soft glow of another alarm labeled paper drop, and the pale reminder sat there like a thin line under my words, drawing the shape of what was about to come. The day everything landed was quiet and bright outside the school. I stood near the steps with Naomi, hands steady, watching cars crawl through the pickup line. Lena arrived with Marcus, laughing, already annoyed to see us waiting. Before she could speak, a man stepped forward, confirmed her full name, and placed an envelope in her hand. She opened it, read petition, temporary orders, custody schedule, and went pale while parents pretended not to stare. A teacher guided Maya to me. She gripped my hand. The bell rang, sharp and clear, as I turned and walked away with Maya safe.